Hello and welcome to Better Presentations, episode 3. In this episode, I want to talk to you about fonts and how to make the best use of fonts so that your presentations stand out and look fantastic. Let's take a look at a slide that I just took off Google. Now, this slide is bad. It's bad for many different reasons. Too many colors, using clip art style images, but the thing I want you to focus on is the typeface, the font or typeface. I always mix up whether it's a typeface or it's a font, so in this episode I'm just going to call them fonts because everybody seems to know that term. The first one in red, stop paying attention to the speaker. That one is in a bright red color which doesn't really mix very well with the blue background, and it's in a italicized manner. And then if you look at the second line, which is look at me instead, in purple, which again does not match particularly well with the background, although it does with the left hand picture, I must admit. The top font in red, stop paying attention to the speaker, this one is in what we call a sans serif font. Now, sans serif fonts, generally speaking, are very good for headlines because they stand out, they're non-emotional, and they don't attach anything to it. The second line, look at me instead, is in what we call a serif typeface because it's got the little tails on the end of the letters, as I call it. Now, if we take this, the problem with this slide and the problem with the typeface particularly is what it is saying is that you really don't care. I don't care about you at all, because it shows that you're just using standardized fonts that come in PowerPoint or Keynote, and you just haven't even bothered to change it. It also says you have absolutely no idea what you're doing because it just looks awful. It really does not look good at all. And finally, it says I am not a professional, because professional presenters would never use a slide like this. So the question is, sorry, I should just point out that is the sans serif font and there is the serif font. So to improve this, what do we do? Well, the first thing to do is have one sans serif font for the headline or the title. And you need to make sure that the headline or the title is much bigger and preferably in bold. So if you look at what we have on this slide, to improve this is in Helvetica, New Helvetica, bold and condensed, and I think at the moment that looks really nice. Now I do change mine. The text font that I'm using is Meta Pro, which is one I love, and I've used it for years, and it never ever seems to go out of fashion. But neither of these fonts are what we call serif fonts. These are just, both of them are serif font, sans serif font. Sans means without. The second thing is use one sans serif font for your text. Now, because you're doing a presentation, this is all about legibility. It's about making sure that your text is readable. And so very important that you make sure that the text size is bigger, and the advice I always give is never ever smaller than 30 point. Now that's big for most of you, but believe me, when you're presenting, 30 point fonts are so legible, everyone can see, and it stops you from putting too much on one slide. Now, if you take a look at these posters from movies that I just, again, collected from Google, we have the original Helvetica movie, and Helvetica is a typeface. I love this documentary just because of, in the design world, so many people love or hate Helvetica. But if you look at the way they've designed the posters, if you look at the way they've designed all these posters, the main headline is in a big, bold, sans serif font. And then the subheadings and the text is made much smaller and has become less bold because it's not as important. So the thing is, the headline is standing out, and then you've got the text that you're using in a much smaller way. But this is where I get a lot of my inspiration from for my design for slides. Is I look at movie posters and posters in general, and I can pick up the kind of things that people are using. But always, the main headline is always in a big, bold, sans serif font, unless they're using the font in like in the art and copy poster here. The ampersand sign is done in a wonderful serif design way, but that's because it is advertising like an art and copy. So one of the things that you really need to remember is when you're designing your slides, keep the fonts simple. I mean, it's always a good idea to keep things simple. No more than 2 fonts, no more than 2 colors, and keep the minimum size to 30 point. And if you follow those kind of rules, I can assure you that your slides will immediately look so much better. So there you go. That's this week's episode of Better Presentations. I hope you found it useful. Please, if you have any comments about this, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. I always find that fonts is a very personal thing. I would always recommend you try use a sans serif font without the tails, because it's all about legibility and readability. But apart from that, just keep it simple. No more than 2 fonts, no more than 2 colors, and keep the minimum size to 30 points. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next episode, have a wonderful week. Thank you very much.